All right, guys. Hey, thank you for joining. And I got my good buddy Eddie on. Eddie, what's up, dude? Good to see you, man.
I like the applause.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. Like, just so everybody knows this, like, when Eddie started getting this thing going in the business now, what, about a year or so ago, year and a half ago?
It's probably been closer to 2 years.
So closer to 2 years.
Yeah.
Man, he came in, he said, dude, I think there's some things you can do as far as a training, standpoint that would really help the organization, help the team. And I was like, I like it, dude. I mean, I'm open to anything. And he came on board and he was just getting started, just an agent and didn't have any team. He's like, maybe you should start doing some podcast stuff. And he's actually the one that helped launch all this. And he did it selflessly, just out of his heart. Like, let me just come out. I don't know a lot of things. And I don't think he knew anything. I think he just wanted to serve and help. I think he started Googling things, but he didn't have any kind of background in this, right?
No. It's crazy sitting on the other side of the camera after being
On that side for so many times. And even the boot camp and a lot of things that have served a lot of you guys very well, that was put in place, and Eddie kind of helped structure that. And I've always seen what Eddie could do. Like, he's a selfless person, has a heart to serve, wants people to win, and will do it at any cost. Like, I just remember a lot of our conversations happened before 5:30 a.m. Because a lot of times I get my best thinking in about 4. And then I'd just be like, well, I don't want to lose this slot. Let me call Eddie up. And I'd run it by you. And so, dude, I just appreciate your availability and selflessness to kind of help grow. And I'm really excited to see your team and organization taking off the way it is, where the last like 90 days, man, there's been some great growth. Your team just newly minted senior sales manager, so over $100,000. Congratulations, bro.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's exciting, and the foundation is starting to get laid to build something really great. And I'd love to have you just kind of talk about, a little bit about yourself, Eddie. How you found the business, how you found Family First Life, why you were looking, and let's start there, and then we'll kind of move from there.
Yeah, so my background, has been in the mortgage business. On the telesale side, since about 2005. Got into the mortgage business after I came back from school, graduated college, and I actually went away to Europe for about 3 years. And when I came back, a lot of my high school buddies who never went to school were in the mortgage business, killing it. Making $200,000-$300,000 a year, and here I was with the master's degree, thinking, what do I do? So jumped into the mortgage business. Everybody knows how that went. And, when that crashed, what's funny is I made a transition and I got into the golf business, right? It was like, who do you, trying to get around the most affluent people. And at that time I was thinking, well, who is that? What environment can I put myself in? And an opportunity came about where I, put myself in the golf business with a company that manages a lot of courses, and started meeting a lot of affluent people. And one of the guys that I met there was actually a financial advisor. He was up here in the high desert. Now he's down in the low desert, Palm Springs area. And so he introduced me into the business about 2013, 2014. And he mostly focused on, financial planning, rollover side. And what's crazy about that time, around 2014, it was a kind of a bittersweet moment in my life as well, that me and my wife had the opportunity to adopt our son. And
Which he's great, by the way.
yeah,
I've seen he came in quite a few times. I mean, you've done a great job raising him. And by the way, just so anybody knows, I think he can kick about everybody's butt. Like, I wouldn't want to mess with him. And he's like, what is he, 8?
10 now, yeah.
8 when I met him. And he's affluent with jiu-jitsu and all kinds of stuff. And you're telling me, I'm like, dude, I'm glad he's on our side, man. A great kid.
But it's different, when you adopt a kid and congratulations on your new
Thank you,
son.
man.
It's different, and for us it was bittersweet because we actually, for those that don't know, he ended up losing his mom and dad in 2 separate car accidents. And so for us, when we got him, we were dealing with life insurance and the companies. And so that kind of took on, like a whole new role. My wife dealt with a lot of stuff, but turned out, what we thought he had in life insurance from his parents, wasn't there for whatever reason. And so I thought, to myself, and that's when I really started looking into insurance for me and my wife, and making sure he was protected, moving forward, that if something ever did happen to me and my wife, he was taken care of for the rest of his life. And so that's what really got me into life insurance. And from there, when I was with the financial planner, he started making some moves. And then I started looking and actually got introduced to Family First Life in about 2000, I think 2016, right?
Yeah.
I think 2016, 2017 is when I first came around. I was kind of one of the ones that got into the business that I really didn't do anything. And I was doing it kind of as a side hustle. At that time, I ended up becoming a VP with the mortgage company. And so I was kind of, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And, I saw the potential at Family First Life. And I think, I want to say like probably the first 6 months, like at Family First Life, I failed, and it was a lot of it because I was trying to do it my way, the way that I was doing it in the mortgage business, and trying to apply that. And so it didn't really work out. And then, I came back, after some hiatus. And I don't want to talk about that a little bit later because most agents that struggle, go away quietly, right? Instead of raising their hand and saying, I need help or
Right.
reaching out to people, they kind of go away quietly and hide like they're embarrassed. And that's the worst thing that you can absolutely do as a new agent is when you struggle, like go away quietly and hide and think that you did something wrong. You didn't. It's just everything's new. And so it took me a while. Then I came back, and that's when I reached out to you. I kind of had some aha moments and some self reflection, and I was thinking, who do I know? Who's in my phone that's the most successful person that I know, right? And so I kept looking, and your name kept coming up. I was like, man, it's Paul, and it was kind of humbling coming back after, having some tough conversations with you, and you're like, hey, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, and it was one of those things like I had to really, bear down and really, look inside and say, okay, well, what do I want to do? And that's when I started coming around and we started doing the podcast. And at the beginning, it was just all how can I get as close to you and learn the business, right? And you were like, well, you know what, let me pay you for helping out. And I'm like, dude, I don't want nothing. I remember some of our first conversations. You were like, well, why do you want to work for free? You know, and I'm like, dude, I need to be around. I need to learn the business. There's nobody else that I know that I can learn from besides you. And so when I first started coming around, we started doing all this other stuff, and I really started learning the business from a different side. The way that I was thinking about the business really changed. I didn't understand at that time the way you were thinking, and it took time, right? I started to hear the language, started going through the podcast, and when I edited them, I'd have to watch some of these interviews with top producers 10 times, and so a lot of that stuff really really sank in for me, and I was like, okay, I got it, I can do it. Little by little, started getting into it, started building. We were doing some things that were kind of new, with FFL that like a lot of people are doing now. And, from there, I was like, man, I got this. And, it kind of changed. And the more that, I got into this business, the more my confidence grew. And the more that I, was out there working and building a team and grinding and seeing how hard you worked in this thing. Granted, I can't compare to how hard you work in it, but I figured, yeah, I can do it.
Yeah.
And so little by little, it's kind of fallen into place, and I, here where I am now, with the successful team that man, I feel like is about to skyrocket, to the moon. And I want to say, I was it me? I don't know. I'd hired some and got affiliated with some great people, right?
Mm-hmm.
That were able to really work. And we've talked about that over and over again, that we don't really manage people. We just hope that we get lucky and hire great people and empower them and allow them to take off,
Yeah.
and so that's where I'm at right now, that life insurance means something different, to me than most people because of my son. And I see the value, I've been through it. It's not just a piece of paper, and so when I go out there and I talk to people about life insurance, like I have a story, and the story's my son. So it's a lot different,
Yeah.
these days. So
Well, dude, I mean, you said so much stuff, man. I don't want to interrupt you
Yeah.
because what you were saying was so good. There's so much value in really every, direction you took that. But I want to unpack one of the things, I mean, two things. One, I think life insurance can mean more to somebody if they intentionally look at it for the meaning. Like it meant something for you, and it was so visible because you got your boy and the things that took place there, but you still could have easily just not really translated that to what you were doing here. You could have kind of left that in its own box in the past and what took place, and just said, "I'm gonna go out there and help clients with life insurance. They need it." But really keeping that on the forefront of your mind, and I think that's something that's necessary for every person to elevate their production, is to increase your belief in what you're servicing people with. And this isn't selling knives and what have you, where it's like that's a difficult venture to go down. This is serving people with what they're going to deal with inevitably, and one of the hardest things that they're ever going to have to go through. We provide a solution. I think there's things that even your story, Eddie, for somebody like myself being 19 when I started this business, I didn't have personal stories like I do now. I didn't have personal clients that I had got calls from crying hysterically like I do now. But I had stories like yours. I had people where I got on and they would talk about what they had gone through in their situation. And I would think about that. It wouldn't be like I'd hear it and then discount it. Man, I let that seed really kind of fall onto fertile ground because I knew that what was going to be birthed, what was going to grow was belief in what I was helping people with. And it was so essential for me to be there for the family, because this isn't something where you show it and it's so appealing that they buy it. This is something that people have to feel.
No.
They have to feel it. And I think that's a big deal. The other thing I want to really kind of go into is, when we first started having conversations, I literally remember almost this combativeness about you. Like you kind of had your own thought process. And I remember thinking and being very upfront with you, like, dude, like I'm telling you, I'm not good at a lot of things, but dude, I'm telling you, this is what you got to tweak and adjust.
Yeah, I think you even hung up on me a couple times.
But I was like, dude, what are we?
Because you're like, I'm not going to listen to you complain.
Well, I don't know if I hung up or not. Maybe I lost signal.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I've hung up on it. But we were talking. I'm like, dude, I'm telling you. But you had this kind of, you call it ego or whatever, combativeness, and everybody has different levels of that. And in fact, sometimes they don't have it, and it shows up later, right down the line. But you went from that to showing up and being like, dude, I just want to be around and hang out. I mean, that's one side of the spectrum to the other.
Yeah.
What all of a sudden took place where you're like, you know what, I'm going to give up my closed-mindedness, the way I see it, and I want to open up and get around and figure this thing out and make adjustments. What changed? How did you do that?
Yeah, so what got in the way was pride, right? Like I think it was my pride that got in the way. That was like, man, I'm going to do it my way. I know it works in all these other industries. It's got to work here. Well, like it's different. It's a different transaction. So, I mean, what finally opened my eyes is that I started hearing all these voices, right? Like listening to people, right? Being around you and listening to Sean Mike and all these people, you start to hear different voices and they think differently, and then that opened up my eyes where, I've always listened to guys like Tony Robbins, another guy, Marshall Silver, Ed Milet. Like I listened, but I never really heard, and so now I started hearing their message and it started making sense. And I'm like, okay, like for something to change.
But what do you mean by that? You would listen, but you never really heard?
Because a lot of times I was listening while I was driving. I was in the car. I was always doing something else, and it's like, okay, I like the message, right? I hear what they're trying to say and it sounds good. And there's a lot of people that are following them. So it must be good.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't until, I started really listening, right, and really trying to hear the message and taking notes and saying, let me listen to that again. There's something here that I. Were
you at like a lower point when you were willing to start hearing, as far as like financially and where you're at in the business, where it wasn't working for such a long, where you were at a point where
Yeah.
You were more receptive.
Well, so I was a VP at a mortgage company, right? And I think I got comfortable and I got complacent and I, hit like a plateau. And I'm like, okay, there's this ceiling that I don't see myself getting past, and there's things that I wanted in my life, that I think were happening. I saw my son starting to grow and there was things that were happening around me that I was seeing, and I'm like, there's houses that I want to live in, there's places that I want to take my son, and there's things that I want to do, and I don't see where I'm at being able to make that happen, right? And so I started having to look outside and think differently, and that's one of the biggest things. Like listening, you always say like what Sean Mike says, you got to listen, you got to hear it because, it doesn't make sense at first to the average person, right? Because you got to realize like, it's that thing, he says, we're playing chess, not checkers. And so you gotta try to put yourself in their shoes and think how they're thinking. And it's hard, right? It's hard at first because you don't understand, right? There's a lot of things that are kind of different. And you're like, man, how can he think that way when, I'm thinking about just paying bills and trying to live life and all this stuff. And they see money differently, right? They see like money working for them versus, money just coming in to be able to pay bills and just get by. And so I started really listening to people and hearing the message that they were trying, and I started taking notes. I would write stuff down. I saw that, you always carried around that little folder that you used to always carry around where you'd write notes, and a lot of it was for, when you're going to do, some of these online, podcasts and stuff. And so I have it in my bag. I started writing messages too, really stopping when I had something that I heard and writing it down and say, that's something I got to dig into a little bit more. And I just started slowing down and taking the time instead of letting life just pass me by. I started taking control, right? And trying to move and think differently. And when I started doing that, little things started to change.
Well, dude, I'm telling you what, this right here, I think, is probably one of the biggest things that trip people up to the success that's before them. Because I do believe that without a shadow of a doubt, that in this business with Family First Life, that anybody can be successful. Now, that doesn't mean everybody will be. I think anybody could be. But I think we go from the people that can be, that don't, that could have been. I think it's just stuff. I think that even for me, Eddie, when I hit a certain level, I stopped listening. I kept listening, but I stopped hearing. Yeah. And what took place was I had gotten to a level where I felt pretty comfortable in my business. So when I'd hear Sean say, hey, do this, tweak this, adjust that, I was listening. And even if I was on a call with managers or whatever, I wasn't hearing it. It was like I had fences up to protect me from actually feeling like I needed to adjust, change, and grow, because I felt like I was decent and I had developed some kind of pride without even knowing it was there. Yeah. And I really didn't know it was there. And it wasn't until I said, it really came from this dissatisfaction and almost like hatred for where I was at, thinking like, I can't continue to stay here. We need to grow at a faster pace. And I got so discontented with where I was at and wanting to grow and do better that I finally started to take down those fences. And when those fences dropped, I started to hear. And the message I heard was not, well, this is, how can I defend myself with this fence up of not being applicable to me? Like, I hear you, but that's not, and I'd still listen and get, but every word, how can I look at myself, interrogate my reality of where I'm at, and use this to grow and develop? How can I use this? And when I said, how can I started to hear. And I think that's such a big deal. You can get it at any stage. It can come from at any place. And sometimes it creeps in, man. It's sneaky. Yeah. It's like the thief in the night, man, where and all of a sudden you wake up, you're like, man, why am I not seeing what I want to see and feeling the way I want to feel? And it's because it snuck in without you knowing. And I think that the answer to keeping that robber from sneaking in or the fence from being built is the stuff you talked about, Eddie, like the notepad, and you're taking notes, like no matter what level you're intentionally. And I got away from that. And I remember a while back, I said, what am I doing? Like, I've always said I'm a lifelong learner, but now my action's not showing that. And then now it's like no matter where I'm at, what platform I'm in, if I'm watching the TNL every week, I'm taking notes. I don't care who's on there. I can learn something from everybody. And when you're like that, man, you keep your fences down and the robber out, and your humility at the highest level, and the open-mindedness where it needs to be. And then you watching all these videos and podcasts and editing, it started to unveil some things that you could excavate and get removed out of. And then the message that was so repeated was the one that you started to believe more than the one you had before. Yeah. And I think that that's such an essential thing, man. You know, Eddie, where do you see yourself? I mean, what is the business meant for you, you know, with all the personal stuff that you have going on, things taking place, to be able to have a business that income is still coming in, you can work whenever you know, at the times that you need to work, you can build it the way you want to build it, you have your hands on that. It's not a job where you clock in and clock out. Like how much has that meant for you and your family in the seasons that you've gone through?
Yeah, you know, it's different. Like, I mean, I'm super grateful at the position that I'm in now, right? And you know, they always say that comparison is the thief of joy, right? And so I've always, you know, for the longest time compared myself versus all these people that I saw within FFL killing it, like at a high rate and a, you know, at a lightning speed. And I figured, you know, it's like, man, if I keep comparing myself against other people, I'm never going to be happy, right? And so what I had to look back and say, okay, this is where I'm at. This is the direction that I'm heading, and this is the speed that I'm heading, right? And I'm always trying to get better, always trying to kind of speed that process up. And it's like Elon Musk said, I saw it on Facebook and I screenshotted it. You know, he's like, if you plan to do something in 30 days, you're going to do it in 30 days, right? But if you plan something to do it in 3 days, you'll get it done in 3 days. And so now that's kind of like how I'm thinking as I see this business, and you see guys like Zach, you know, at his age signing a deal with Integrity Marketing Group, like it's motivating me to move at like a faster rate. Don't get me wrong, you know, when you start building a business, you know, it's crazy how much time and effort you have to put into it. I'll tell my wife it's almost like a 7-day a week, 24-hour day job. You know, I was sending messages to some of my agents at 11:30 last night. I take calls at 5 a.m., you know, from East Coast agents. Because we're in the West Coast here. And so it's different, but I love it. You know what I mean? I don't see it as a job. Like I love it. I love what I do. I love helping people. You know, I thought I knew, how to, manage people because I came from different VP roles, but this is not really managing people, right? It's empowering people and directing them and giving them guidance. And the one thing that I've really learned that's really helped me is, and I don't even know who said it, but like it's helped me out, especially lately, is that, you know, when you're trying to help people or different agents get up and going, you know, their perspective is their reality, you know, and so you got to kind of change and try to see things their way and say, okay, this is how they see it, but sometimes what they think really isn't. You know, it's kind of the saying that you say, what you think is really isn't. And, you know, so I've learned a lot about helping people, and I've learned a lot about taking myself out of it, what my personal gain out of it, and really wanting to help other people succeed, you know. And when you can do that, you know, I mean, it's a different feeling. And I'm excited. I mean, I wake up every day excited to see what the next level is going to be, right? What can we do today? You know, it's kind of weird. I mean, especially with, you know, some of the stuff that personal issues that stuff that I have going on. I mean, I appreciate every day. So it's different, you know.
Yeah. Do you want to share anything that you have going on?
No, I mean, I just some health stuff that, runs in the family. Stuff that, my grandma had, my mom had. And, makes it, I still got to do my job every day, and, um, worrying about, being as healthy as I can for my wife and my family. And so that's, over the last few months, really dealing with that. Um, it's kind of opened my eyes where like every day counts for me, and I don't want to get too into it, but every day's different, and every day counts, and every hour is an opportunity to get something done, in a positive way. So, um,
Well, dude, I'll tell you what, man, you've capitalized and not, I mean, where a lot of people could say, man, I got this going on, and therefore I'm not going to take it to the next level, or I'm okay with staying here. Dude, you've battled through that, man. You're a warrior, you're a fighter, you're an overcomer. And I said this when we first talked about it. I was like, dude, I got no doubt. I'm 100% sure. And I don't pretend to be God, but I pray and stand in absolute faith. I'm positive that on the other side of it, it's just going to be phenomenal testimony. And you wake up every day, man, and you give it your all. Your business is showing that, and it's. I think everything happens for a reason. That God has His hand on absolutely everything, and the fact that all that stuff took place for you to be positioned where you're at now, dealing with what you're dealing with now, that you can work your business and still be able to kind of deal with what you've got going on with the health and stuff. Um, I can see you exploding this thing. I remember talking to you day one. I'm
yeah,
like, dude, you're gonna have a massive business.
yeah,
I can see it, dude. And the thing is this, that doesn't mean when you're seeing that there's not things in the way that kind of cloud it. Everybody has to excavate to elevate. Like, dude,
yeah,
I'm not confused that I got a lot of dysfunction I got to
yeah,
work on for me to hit the next level.
yeah,
I mean, and it's a prog, and it's exciting though. I kind of started getting excited about my dysfunction. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, I got something to tweak, adjust, and like I got to work on this, and that messes me up, and I get frustrated here, and that gets me really angry, and just things you got to deal with. But man, you've become such a great leader to your team, and I see it as you work with your team. It's what I saw when you first came in and said, "Hey man, can I help out?" I'm like, "You can do, but I'm paying you," and I did pay you. Don't act like I did. I
yeah,
was like, "I'm going to. I don't care what
yeah,
you
yeah,
say."
yeah. No, that's yeah,
I'm forcing this, man. But
yeah,
you didn't have any intent. That
yeah,
wasn't your deal.
yeah.
And Eddie, let me ask you this as we wrap up, man. Like, where do you see yourself going? Where do you see this business going in the next maybe 6 months, 12 months? And what is it going to mean for your family when you start to get there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the goal, I think, with any, insurance agent or anybody trying to build a business is what, the people, like you, Andrew Taylor, Sean Mike, have achieved, right? I think that's the pinnacle of the insurance business is getting to an integrity deal, becoming a board member and getting to that point. And, I think when you get there, I think the job gets a little bit harder, and it changes. And so, I mean, obviously my goal every day is to build, take advantage of every day, take advantage of every hour and build something that will eventually get me there. Right. Will it take me 6 months, a year, 2 years? I don't know, but every day I'm working towards that goal. Right. And trying to get there. And I tell new agents coming in, listen, these guys have laid the foundation and the roadmap to get there. All you got to do is follow it. You don't have to be a pioneer. Just come in and follow the roadmap that's set in front of you. And that's all I'm trying to do is keep one foot in front of the other and get there. And I think, when I can get there, it's like I tell everybody else, like you grind in this business for anywhere for 2 to 5 years, maybe even longer. I mean, you can create something that's going to provide a lifestyle for your family that most people can only dream of, right? And it's not about the money. It's about the comfort, the opportunity, the different things that um, being in that environment, being able to associate with different people can bring about, not only for you but for your family, for your kids. I mean, for your kids, to feel comfortable, around a CEO, like Sean Mike, that's so valuable for your kids, right? And they don't even know it yet. For them to be around people like Andrew Taylor and feel comfortable, like, man, like they probably treat him like an uncle, you know, but they don't even know yet that being around those type of people are going to impact their life, from now until, whenever, and impact their kids. because they're thinking and learning and associating with people that are on a different level, right? And that's the part that most people don't think about. That's you can't put a price tag on that. That's what I want for my son. Is to put him in an environment where he can learn from people that have achieved so much and impacted, so many lives, right? Help people grow. I mean, that's the one thing I look at, like from all the top people. It's not, what they've achieved and the money that they've made, that's all good. But when you look at, like, the fulfilled life, how many people have they helped? Like that's what, in this world, that's what means the most.
Yeah, that's amazing, dude. Very, very well put, dude. Probably the best I've heard stated, and I couldn't agree more. And I think that's one of the things that it's easy to kind of not see because it's not so visible when it comes to the attributes and the virtues that are developed when you're in a business like this. But man, it's priceless. Like I know that I'm a better spouse, I'm a better parent, I'm a better leader, I'm better relationally with friends and people that God's put me in their lives with, and their lives have been put. I'm better in all those areas because of how I've developed in this environment, because it's one of those things where as you get around people and you're self-employed and you're building a business, like there's just things that you develop and grow that you normally never would have. And it's something that, take the money aside, they can't take the character that's developed in this environment. And it's a beautiful thing, man. And I couldn't agree more with you. It's a thing that everybody has. Everybody has the ability to do that. And I thank God every day I wake up to be able to associate and hang out with people like you, Eddie, and different VPs and managers and people and producers that are just stepping in and creating a great situation for their family, changing the trajectory for their family. Because I know that as I stepped in this business, man, I didn't know what it had in store for me, right? Initially, I thought, man, make some money. Yeah. Septic tanks smell, this doesn't, and I'm going to do this. And then as I start getting into it and getting down the path, you start to open up your eyes and say, man, there's so much value here in every area of life where I'm becoming more of what God called me to become because of the things I got to work out. It's not just this mindless numbness, clocking and clocking out. You grow, you develop every day. Find out things about yourself that you didn't know. Find out great things you didn't know. Find out things that need to be tweaked and adjusted that you didn't know. And get around people that can kind of highlight that and make you aware, and then create a great vision of an opportunity that you could step into that maybe you didn't see yourself. And I know I've experienced that, dude, and it's excited to lock arms with you as we continue to build this thing. So I appreciate you joining, man.
I appreciate you. Thank you for having me on.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, hey, go out there, make it a massive week. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.